This video covers working out finished drafts or final projects for Project 1, the modular typeface. I have a folder here. It's been here all along since I started the project, and there's a folder called First Drafts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the First Drafts Illustrator file into a new folder which I titled Finished Designs. And I've already copied that in there, and I've renamed it. Now the reason why you want to do this is you don't want to accidentally save over your first draft files, especially if you really mess something up in the finished designs. So I'm going to open this file, and I'm going to zoom in, so this should look familiar to you. It's from my last demo. And I'm going to make some adjustments to things that I needed to work on. So I'm going to go to View and Show the Grid. Now I did reduce these in size, so they no longer are aligned to the grid, so that could be problematic. I need to increase those back to the size I was using before to do some of these edits I'm going to be working on. So I'm going to select these and I'm going to resize them. I already figured this out. It was actually for me 117 let's do 117% increase because I had reduced it. Now how I figured that is through some trial and error. I can't recall what I reduced it down in the other video. I thought it was only 85%, but the math does not seem to be working out. So now things are lined back up to the grid, all the little squares that I drew. And I need to go in and edit a few things. One in particular thing is when I, let me discuss this real quick. When I double click on this E in the Rebecca name, and I double click again, it will start isolating these in separate, well, these are grouped objects, but it puts them into an editing mode for just these objects. So you have to double click a few times if you grouped. So what I probably should do to clean up some of my craft is actually make these squares and rectangles the right size instead of drawing them and putting white boxes over them, because that could create some issues later. So I am going to clean some things up here, get rid of extraneous material, and things where I drew white boxes and it's showing through. I'm going to clean those up. So this is going to take a bit. So what I'm going to do is take some time to clean these up, and you guys need to do the same. Take time to clean up your work. Now to try to make things easier on me, I'm just going to draw outside of the measure of my type here and draw the boxes I need. Then I can click and drag over the boxes I don't need anymore, delete them, maybe hit delete twice. Whoa, that doesn't work. Delete just this one. And I see that this is one big black box, so I've got some work ahead of me. That I was trying to do some shortcuts, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. I was noticing I was seeing little black lines, so now I have yeah, a lot of work ahead of me that I may need to go ahead and create a new layer and draw something new on top. So let me create another layer. Let me rip this off so we can see it. And it looks like the layers did not copy over well from my previous document. That's a bummer. So let me create a new layer. Get out of this isolation mode. Oh, there they do. They came in just fine. I was just in an isolation mode for drawing on that. When you double click on things in the grouped area, it will start working in isolation mode, meaning it's isolating those items out. It's a completely separate deal from layers. So I'm now drawing on this layer 4, which you can't really tell. I'm drawing all the boxes that I need and leaving the negative spaces white so that I don't continue to run into issues with trying to finish this up and make the digital craft on it lovely. So you'll learn as you go through visual art that it pays to do it really well in the first place. As soon as you think you're cutting some corners that might be good, you oftentimes will find out they weren't so good, and then you have to go in and make adjustments. So that's where I feel like I'm at right now, is I'm trying to clean up from some things that I'd done earlier, some corners I had cut. Okay, that one's good, that one's good, those are good. So I am going to now go in here. This is that nice isolation mode. I'm going to get rid of all of that. And you see, these are the ones that I drew before, but when I come out here and double click on the white space, now you'll see these are all separate. So I'm doing some cleanup. You want to be technically sound in your work, so if you need to clean some stuff up, clean it up. So again, I'm double clicking quite a bit. Now I'm on the artboard, so let me explain what I'm doing here. I click on this object and I can't really edit this E or delete it. Then I double click on it and it's taking anything that was in that group, which you can see this is grayed out, it's not in that group, but anything that was in that group, it's now I'm able to edit just that. So I'm actually going to delete this thing, double click back on the artboard, I'm going to grab all this, oops, let me double click, because these are in separate layers it's a problem, so I need to take everything on layer 4 and drag it to my name in caps layer. Then I can throw that layer 4 away. There we go. Now I can group just those objects. Now, if you're having a hard time isolating them because you drew them at different times, go back to the artboard, use your white arrow tool. This is your direct selection tool. You have to be careful with this though. You want to make sure that it grabs every node. So I'm dragging out in the white space and I'm drawing a box around this because I don't want to miss getting any of my nodes. Now I can group just this E. Now it says it has a hard time doing this in different groups. So I may have to go through and I may have to, excuse me, deselect, double click, grab this, go and ungroup it. So the things that I was doing earlier seem to make sense, but now I got parts and pieces of one thing grouped with other. So I may have to go in and ungroup some stuff if I got really group happy, so to speak. I can always group them back together. That's one of the things I learned when I was a newer designer, is when it was okay to group stuff and when it wasn't. You can see there's something going on there where it's not sticking to the grid, so I want to clean that up. Okay, now again I double click on something to get in that isolation mode, and then I can double click out on the white space to get it back to the main mode where you can see your layers. Now I'm going to alt drag this over and put it over here where it's supposed to be. There we go. Can't remember if I had that moved over one more or not. And I think I went ahead and I did alter this B. I don't have that on video. Oh, no I didn't. This B needs to be as wide as the R, so I need to clean that up too. Now, the cool thing about this direct selection tool is what I really want to do is I really want to shorten this horizontal member, this one, and this one. I just want to shorten those a little bit. And the cool thing about that is, about this white arrow tool, is you can, let me show you on a separate piece, you can click and drag over just partial parts of this item, and it will grab those two nodes. See how they're red or filled in and these are hollow? So I can now move those anywhere. So what I'm going to do, and then if you grab the whole item or all the nodes, it'll move the whole object. So if I click and drag over it, all the nodes are red, whereas if I click over part of it, just the two are red or filled in. But if you click over all of them, it'll move all together. So what I want is I want all of these to move and I want these to shorten. So I grab all of their nodes and the ends of the nodes of these items. So see how those are filled in and these are white. So what it's going to do is it's going to shorten these three objects, but these objects will remain the same because all of the nodes are selected. So there I go, I shortened my B. And I'm going to put him back into position. Now how am I getting all that to work? Because these are grouped. So he's back into position. And I'm going to get rid of that other B too. So I've got a little bit more cleanup to do here. Again, I'm going to click. Oh, it's already in the in isolation mode. Now it's not. You can see in the layers, not in isolation mode. Double click, then click on it. You can see that it's isolating. It's in the isolation mode. I delete that B, come over to the other one, which is all grouped together. Hold down the Alt key to drag it, and I move it to the next position where the B would be. And now I have to move everything around a little bit to compensate for that wider space I used in my last drafts. So there we have it. Now again, to get back to the regular artboard and where we see layers, just double click on that artboard in the white space. So you guys will probably be hopefully you'll have some eagle eye to some detail, and you'll clean some stuff up. What is required is that all of your letters align to the grid. So make sure you don't have little mistakes, especially if you don't have Snap to Grid on. You might have drawn something, and it might be there might be an issue where it just comes out just a little from the grid. Well, that's bad craft, so you don't want sloppy stuff. So go and sometimes it's easier just to rebuild it from scratch if your stuff is not aligning. Just use the other one as a reference. So I'm going to hit Command Z there to undo that. So make sure everything is aligned to the grid, and to be able to do that, make sure Snap to Grid has been on the whole time. That was discussed in first drafts. Okay, so I cleaned up my B. It's less wide. I still have that B to go, so let me delete that one. Grab one of these good ones. Again, I'm going to Alt drag and pop it in position. Again, since it was wider, now I have to deal with these other letters and get those positioned where they need to go. So I have cleaned up this E, and I believe I did. Yeah. And then I hopefully don't have the same problem with my C. Let me see here. It's like those are all separate boxes. One of the ways for me to tell is if I have put colored like white boxes in here, is I can actually go and fill this, draw a box, fill it with a color, preferably one I can see, send it to the back, or go to Object Range, send to back. Now you can see what I'm talking about, how I have certain things, and that red is really jarring. Let me change it to a little bit less jarring color. There we go. But you can see how I still have some of these little white boxes in here that I'm going to delete. There's one there, and let me look at some of these other ones. I got some of my B, my E. So I got some cleaning up to do. That guy needs to go. I need to draw another black box where the other one was. That one needs to go here. Again, I have to sometimes double click. Okay, to get this into isolation mode. Then I click back on the desktop. Clearly my I may need rebuilt. There's my B. Get rid of it. Oops. I think I used the wrong tool, the magic wand. It was selecting all the boxes that were white. Okay, I'm zoomed way out. Or zoomed too far in. There we go. So I shorten that box, draw this box, and get rid of the white box. So wow, I got quite a bit of cleanup on mine. Try to isolate that. There we go. Sometimes to isolate things you have to do lots of clicking. Now the eye looks like a complete rebuild to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the white space, click on the eye, and start rebuilding it. Actually, I'm going to get back here on the white space. I'm going to create another layer. This is just going to be layer 4, and I'm going to start drawing the shapes for this. Then I can turn it off, turn this layer off so I can see the layer underneath it, and toss the old stuff. So Yeah, I thought I was doing a good job with putting white boxes around stuff, but think again. Nope, not a good idea. And you'll learn that in Illustrator. You think, oh, I can just hide this by drawing a white box around it. But then if you put another color behind it, your white boxes they don't turn clear. And there are ways of working with Pathfinder sometimes to get rid of those. But this one I think is pretty much a complete redraw. Now I can turn off the main layer, and I'm looking to see if I missed anything. Looks like I have not. Oops, that was sketch layer. I'm looking for any missing material. Now I can turn off layer 4 because that's where my new I is drawn, letter I. Double click on this word and then grab all of those. Okay, double click to get myself out of isolation mode. Click on layer 4, select the target next to layer 4, and drag that item to the name in caps. I probably should go ahead and group those elements too, because I don't want them moving around on me separate. Okay, now got to clean up this other B. So again, double click. Click again. If you've grouped something inside of another group, you have to double click maybe a couple times, and that way you can isolate just that grouped item. There we go. Now again, I'm going to double click. And this C will be easy to fix because I already have one. Whoops. Let me delete that blue box. We already know what the deal is here. Here we go. Get that E. Before I move it over here, I probably should delete this one. And now I'm going to grab this one, this that's been edited, and I'm going to Alt drag it down to where it's supposed to be. And again, with Snap 2 guides on, that really helps, or Snap 2 grid helps put it in a position. Now, for some reason, it looked like there was still line there, but or a white shape there, but maybe not. I just see those nodes and it kind of is like, what's going on there? Just want to make sure we're not left over with anything. There we go. Anything we don't need. I think it was not a filled shape, it was just a couple of lines that I somehow did not delete. Now another way you can see certain lines that are there is you can go to View and Outline and you can see, oh my gosh, yep, there they are. I've got something here and something here that I didn't want. Now when I go to View and Preview, you won't see any difference, but you certainly will see when I go to select this, oops, there's another line, that you'll see that there are some little invisible lines. Sometimes you have to hit delete twice to get rid of those. So I'm going to use my white arrow tool, delete that. Again, I hit delete twice to get rid of that. Hit once, hit twice, there we go. Just trying to get rid of extraneous bits of information. Now, we're getting closer to this being cleaned up. Now, just for giggles, I'm going to go ahead and create another layer, put it on the very bottom, just to put a color in like I did before. I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, draw a box, and this is just to make sure that I don't have anything filled with white that shouldn't be. And with this layer being behind all these other ones, it will you'll see stuff that you know shouldn't be there, like on this Y. Now I'm going to delete layer 4 because it's empty, and I'm going to go to that Y. Let's see what's going on there. Let me lock that layer so I don't screw it up. So I'm double clicking and I'm saying, oh, yep, there I did it again. I drew a white box. There he is. Let me draw the rest of this black box. Oops. Let's just do, this is kind of cool. You can take this little sampler and go, hey, I want it to look like that, and it'll fill it in. I can't remember exactly how that was, but if it looks good and it reads okay, then I'll leave it. I think I have one more box taken up there. Okay, so basically I'm taking a lot of time to clean some things up, and I expect you guys to. And you may have looked at my stuff and thought it didn't even need cleaned up, but I knew better because I actually sat and looked at stuff, and in my previous video I realized my B's were too wide, and so to clean yourself up, or clean your stuff up, it's really important. Now another thing that I might do, if I really want to take the time, is especially on my cap, uppercase, maybe on my lowercase, let me turn off the grid, view, hide grid. You know, like if I have letters that repeat, especially when they're right next to each other, you'll see the same pattern is repeated. So I might take some time to diversify that pattern from one letter to another. Same thing with my E's. I have 3 E's in this name. I've got a couple of R's, a couple of B's. So I might take time to diversify if I see that that's necessary. Now, some people might not feel that's necessary. Now, if this was a hand-generated typeface, I definitely would diversify, or I wanted people to think that it was. Okay, so I'm zooming out. I'm looking for any other inconsistencies and anything that needs edited. And this is through not only critique but also self-assessment. You might find some things that you're like, well, you know, well, nobody said anything about it, but I probably should go ahead and fix this. Now, another thing I want to do is I don't think I did, let me double click again, I don't think I put, let me turn this on, I don't think I put any white boxes in those letters. So here's how we're going to tell. I'm in that very back layer, layer 5. I'm going to fill that with blue, and yay, no white boxes. Those were all drawn as independent squares and rectangles. Now I'm going to copy that blue box that I have selected, go back into layer 5, click on this third artboard and paste it, and woohoo! I need to make sure that B has been changed to the one that was not so wide. Let me turn on my grid and see if, oops, see if this B, oh, there's a white box, gotta fix that. I want to see if that B is as wide as the R, because I just fixed that on the other ones. Oh, now I just deleted something. I was getting ready to do another box here, but you can see how this stuff is not snapped to the grid. So you got to be really careful when you're working on stuff that the stuff is snapped to the grid. So one of the things I'll do, because when we centered these on the last video, when we centered them, it took them off the grid lines. So I'm going to grab this whole word. Just getting so click happy here. Click, there we go. If I just use the arrow left key and maybe the arrow down key, what it will do is when you arrow things, when you arrow them over, they automatically will snap to the grid. So that really helps me in that it's aligned to the grid. I can always center align this to the artboard like I did before. So you have to remember, when we center out align stuff to the artboard, it may not align to the grid, and you have to get it to align to the grid again, and then you can go back and center it later. Still something up in here I didn't particularly like. Well, looks like it's fine. I was looking for some overlapping that had been going on that looked like it was taking a bite right about here. But it's probably fine. Alright, now we have no white boxes. Now I'm going to turn off that layer 5 because I really don't need it. That was just for the color behind it. And again, I did want to check to make sure that this B was as wide as, excuse me again, oops, let's grab this. I gotta get things to snap to the grid, so let me do that first. With this B, get it clicked on here, just the B only. This B should be as wide as that R, and it is not. So I'm just, instead of copy and pasting, since this was such an easy fix, I'm going to click and drag till I get over the nodes, the beginning nodes of, or ending nodes of those lines, and then just hit the arrow over key. And it's now in good shape. Now I just have to put him back where he belongs. And again, you guys have to be careful how you're working. And you want to make sure you get things to snap back to the grid. Oops, I didn't. Oh yeah, I know what I was doing there. I forgot. I set this so the R and the B were 2 grid points down below the letters, the other letters. So now I have to get these guys to snap to the grid. So I'm just going to click and drag. Oops. So I can just click and drag over those guys. Oops. Just double click. Okay, now I can click and drag over these guys and snap them to the grid. Again, that was just using the arrow key, because when you use the arrow key, it automatically snaps. Now I'm going to grab my B, double click, get him again. There we go. Get him moved over. Looks like I had everything spaced out about 3 grid units wide, and I had this going down 3. So I believe that was aligned to the top. There we go. And I might have enlarged that B because looking, maybe not. It's hard to tell, hard to remember, hard to tell. It's as tall as this R, so it should be fine. And then I had these moved up a little bit. Okay, so there may or may not be a whole lot of difference between your first drafts and your finished drafts. It all depends on how much more work that you need to do and how accurate you were. Sometimes I'll just start even over on a project if I'm even at drafts. I'm just like, ugh. Maybe I don't like the outcome of something, and I'll actually spend the time to redo it. Now, to get ready to post these, again, we're going to want to center align these to the middle of the board. So I'm going to grab all the first name items. Oops, I need to get these all grouped together as one. So let me figure out who's grouped into what. So let me ungroup. Oops, ungroup. And I just want to make sure that all of these letters I can group together. And then all of these letters should be grouped together. So there'll be a lot of ungrouping and grouping on your behalf. Now that alignment is up here. If you can't find it, there's the word align. So we're going to align to the artboard again, and this is a center align. Same thing with this bottom. We're center aligning it. Grab the whole thing, and if it's too big for the artboard, this is where I got in trouble before. Oh, by the way, if you keep getting in trouble on stuff like this, like I do, before you scale them, copy them out here in the pasteboard. That doesn't print, by the way. And when we make our PDFs, I'm not sure if it'll show or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another. Oh no, I already got the layer 5. I'll just put it on layer 5. So I'm going to put this stuff right here. See where it's the item selected? I'm going to drag that little icon to layer 5. That way it's safekeeping. It's there. If I really screw up my sizes later on, I've got it for reference. And I'm going to scale this. And when I scale stuff, it always messes things up for some reason. So let me scale this. I believe it was 85% is what I did in the last video. And then, of course, make sure again that these are centered to the artboards, which when I scaled them they actually did, and I was lucky. Again, we're going for optical center, so that will be slightly above mathematics center. Now, if I were to group these, they become one object. But before I do, I want to make sure that it's centered to the artboard. There we go. Then I go ahead and group them before I do the horizontal centering. But there is a horizontal center. Oh, there we go. See how it moved it down? Well, optical center is just a few degrees above mathematical center. So you can mathematically center it horizontally, but just move it up a little bit. And then the last one, again, I would make changes. You know, nothing's ever perfect, it doesn't seem. I'll park that with this guy. There we go. But if I needed to make more changes, I would. I could get even a little artistic with it. I could even take this R, and you know how the Coke logo does its thing. If I held on the Shift key, let me keep it in line. I could do something like that. So you can continue to play around with this stuff. Just before you get too playful, though, copy and paste it into a layer that you're not even using. Okay, so this is in layer 5, so it's for safekeeping, and put it out on the artboard, but turn that layer off when you're ready to make your JPEGs and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of fun to play around, but you got to remember to not to screw yourself over, basically. Oops. I want to hold down the shift as I'm dragging. I want to hold that shift key down because that'll keep it all in one nice long straight line. Otherwise, it'll move out on you. Now I might increase the size of this R a little bit, and if you just hold down your shift key and click and drag on a node, you'll see I just increased that R. Might do the same thing with the B. Now I just have to remember how many boxes, grid lines, I increase that by. So you probably want to count when you do something like this. So I'm holding down the shift key and I'm like 1, 2, 3, whoops, excuse me. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. Boy, it just really is fussing with me. There we go. Now it no longer goes with the grid. This is why it's best to copy and paste your stuff into a safe, like what I call a safe layer. And then we're going to increase just this B. Just grab him. We're going to make him scale up 4 grid lines too. And again, it can fight with fight with you. So, it's just fighting with me trying to grab the thing. I'm getting too click happy. There we go. So it's hold down the shift key. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go, just like I did the R. Now I'm going to turn off the grid for just a second. Double click. When I do something like this, I also might want to break that apart and put in a few white lines just to go with the rest of the piece. So don't be afraid to experiment a little bit. I know a lot of you haven't been afraid. Some of you can be a little bit more conservative. Let me turn on the show grid because this is still snapping to the grid, so I can do a few different things here. I can draw, randomize my little white dots, my breaks. There we go. And hopefully that has a better sense of unity with the rest of the design. I'm not sure I love that strong horizontal flow there, but yeah, not a real fan of it, but we'll just, just playing around here for now. Another thing I might do is, because I have that uppercase or that lowercase b with an ascender, just to balance that out, I might try to do a little bit of the same kind of thing here. And maybe have that, move this over to the dock so I can see. And last was right about there. Okay, so this is kind of playing around with a couple of different options, dressing it up a little bit. You may or may not like this. It's getting a little too busy for me, but just play around a little bit. If you don't like it, you can always undo it. But yeah, just give yourself a little play time. Not that we're not taking it seriously. In fact, when you take something seriously, you actually can play. I know a lot of serious designers that have a lot of fun. That doesn't mean, because you're having fun doesn't mean it's not, you can have fun and work is what I'm trying to point out. Okay, so I might group these when I'm done. Group and center them. See, they weren't centered. Now you'll notice when I center them, they may not align to the grid anymore. And it feels a little heavy on the on this left-hand side. So even though this is centered visually, it doesn't, or optically, mathematically, it may not look like it. So let me turn off my, oops, not snap to grid. Let me turn off my hide my grid, and I'm like, you know, I could also increase or decrease the size of this. But this was what it showed was centered. I might decrease this just a little bit, maybe 90%. Hit the preview. Like that looks pretty comfy. Hit OK, make sure it's centered. That probably will make it feel a little bit better. Okay, so it's okay to have a little bit of fun with it. Add some embellishments if you'd like. Don't get too carried away though, because it's still about type and readability. Now, if you had other artboards here with the other drafts, how you delete artboards is you bring up the artboards panel, and it's over here. It looks like 2 squares. If it's not over here, just go to Window and Artboards, and it'll pop up. To delete an artboard, you just click on it. It'll show you which artboard it is by highlighting it, and you just throw it in the trash can. Okay? Just make sure you save this as Project 1 finished, and you don't accidentally save over your drafts. That would be a bad idea, because you might need those. Okay, we're going to do the same thing as we did last time. We're going to save this. Go ahead and draw a black stroked box around, you know, fill of none, stroke of black. Let's make our stroke so we can see it. But draw a box right to the edge of the page. And make that stroke so that it aligns towards the inside of the box that you drew. That way it just doesn't get cut off whenever you export this. Now, you have to sometimes zoom way in. You can't see what in the world you're doing when you're zoomed out. So I'm going to zoom way in and make sure that's there. Snap to grid is on, so it should be snapping right to the edges. And let me zoom in this upper corner, make sure everything's good. Sure is. Now I can just copy that. Go to the second artboard. Oops, getting all carried away here. Double click on it, maybe move over there, and then I'll paste it in place. And then double click the third artboard and go to Edit, Paste in Place. There we go. Now I'm going to save this and export these again. I know that export them as the JPEG, and we're going to use the artboards and export it in grayscale and low. Now when I post these, what will happen is they will, let me get rid of these other ones, they will, you'll be able to see the edges. Now normally we don't want to see the edges in print material. We would just let the white bleed off the edge. But when we're in the digital world and we need to see edges, this is a good way to do it. This is UNLC, and that would make this last one lowercase. And just double check and make sure I've labeled them correctly. Lowercase, upper and lowercase, and all caps. There we go.